listen close. Michael Cochran 150% died of insulin shock. There is no doubt in my mind that this occurred. This is not Jozy's opinion. This is my opinion. Talking to you out there, that I feel I have absolutely came unglued a few times watching this trial. And that's why I was so glad you messaged, so we can kind of walk through each day in the timeline. Welcome to Creepalachia. We are talking the Natalie Cochran trials. I am joined today by now official friend of the show, since it's the second time, Jozy Moore. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You have been, you've been on the trial every day.
Yes, every day.
Yeah, and an update. It's day 7 is Monday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they took Friday off, which was nice, honestly. But yeah, we'll be back on Monday.
Yeah, and there's so much to talk about. Let me fix your camera here a little bit. I gotta say, okay, so I guess first it would be good. Could you give people, is it like, say somebody has no clue about this case?
Okay.
Could you give like a 5-minute overview of what's occurred? And, like I mentioned, day 6 of the trial was yesterday.
Right.
But just kind of, give an overview of Natalie's situation, the Ponzi scheme, and what she's charged with.
Okay. So Natalie Cochran is 44. She's from Raleigh County, and she's currently being charged with first-degree murder for the death of her husband, Michael, who died in 2019 at the age of 38. Natalie, who is a pharmacist, has been accused of killing Michael by using insulin, by injecting him with insulin. So in the lead up to her getting charged with murder, she was charged with money laundering and wire fraud as part of a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme where she asked her family and friends to invest in a business that she said was getting government contracts to sell firearms. So that was how she got her family and friends to invest in the business, and they were supposed to get money back when the business made money. The business never made money. It was all a financial scheme. And in 2019, that was kind of discovered by the state and the FBI. And so she was charged with the Ponzi scheme. She pled guilty at the end of 2020. In 21, she was sentenced, and she is now in federal prison for 11 years.
Natalie Cochran is a felon being charged with another felony.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. And so I was curious about this. Do we know if Michael was going to get charged potentially?
So apparently when the investigation started, they said, obviously, the business that they had, it was called, Tactical Solutions. Tactical Solutions Group. So, and if you go on the West Virginia Secretary of State's office, Natalie and her husband, Michael, are both listed as the officers of that organization. So that was the organization they used to say that they were getting government contracts for. And so they both were being investigated at the time. Early 2020, after Michael died is when, or early 2019 is when that investigation started, and they were investigating both of them. But the investigators have since said that while they were investigating throughout 2019, they decided that Michael was not involved, that he was just an innocent bystander who was also a victim, and that Natalie was the mastermind behind everything. So they decided to not even pursue. They said that they could have charged Natalie as a conspirator if she had conspired with Michael to do this, but they didn't charge her. So that's their way of saying, no, Michael was not involved in the Ponzi scheme.
And that was it. Was that before he died?
So that this was after he died. So the investigation, from what the state has said, the investigation didn't start until after Michael died. Now, I kind of got the impression that maybe the FBI started their investigation prior to Michael's death, but the state investigators who testified in the trial, they seem to say that their investigation started in like March 2019, and Michael was had been dead for about a month.
Okay, well, that's good to know but he also had, which during day 6 of the trial was when they had a lot of questions about his work.
Yeah.
He also owned Technology Management Solutions, right?
Right. So it was called, Technology Management Solutions. So that business was started in 2013, and it was essentially like an IT service provider. And that was Michael's background. He worked in IT. He worked for Workforce West Virginia. That was his background. So, but again, Natalie and Michael were both listed as officers in that organization. So he had that business. However, investigators have said that that business was not used that was not part of the Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme was the Tactical Solutions, was the company that was supposed to get state government or state and federal gun contracts. So
gotcha. And I wanted to bring that up because there's a lot of questions like, well, what did Michael do?
Right.
And they're saying he worked on computers. And I got some messages. We put out for Q&A, which we're going to tackle here in a little bit. But a lot of people messaged and said, yeah, Michael actually installed my phone lines. And
really?
Done this.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, well, this helps add some clarity here that there was some legitimate business activity going on. Now, you said he worked for Workforce?
Yeah. According to an article that I found, it said that he was previously employed with Workforce West Virginia.
Okay.
I don't know when. I'm assuming probably like prior to him starting his own business. So prior to 2013.
Right. And all right, so that's kind of setting the groundwork here. Most of the people that are listening probably are already aware of that. So Josie and me are going to be as diplomatic with this conversation as we possibly can. We agreed we're not going to really go on our personal opinion as far as the verdict goes, but I do want to give my opinion as a non-medical expert, but definitely a diabetic, Josie, before we start.
Yeah.
All right, people, listen close. Michael Cochran, 150% died of insulin shock. There is no doubt in my mind that this occurred. This is not Josie's opinion. This is my opinion. Talking to you out there, that I feel I have absolutely came unglued a few times watching this trial. And that's why I was so glad you messaged so we can kind of walk through each day in the timeline, because I have to vent. Okay. And it's so unbelievably sad, especially watching the kids. And, and I'm just telling myself, like, they're wanting to protect their mom. They lost their dad. They lost their mom too, technically. So I'm going to totally keep that in mind with this conversation, because they're the ones really that are suffering the most out of everyone. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, there's a lot of financial loss. There's a lot of people hurting in the community, but I just have to lay it out here. There is no doubt that the prosecution, with what little they have provided, proved to me, being a diabetic, that Michael Cochran died of insulin shock, and there's no doubt. And now the question for me is, well, the burden of proof is proven who gave the shot.
Yeah.
For me personally. But that being said, now that that's out there, take us away. Where do we want to start? Day one? What do you think?
We can start with day one of the trial, or we can start with how we got to the trial. What do you think is best?
I know, let's go ahead and we did do an episode where we kind of walked through a little bit, but it wasn't as detailed as this. So I think it would be good to do that. So let's talk about the financial scheme first, probably, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
So initially it was what, $2.5 million that they ended up proving that Natalie had stole through this business. But what all occurred, during that trial that's relative?
So I'm going to take you back a little bit further because I think it's important to kind of understand who Natalie and Michael were before all of this. So a lot of this information was from Jessica Ferris. She used to work for the Register Herald. She reported on this from like 2019 to 2022 with the Register Herald. So she was really in depth. She even interviewed Natalie Cochran at one point. But essentially, Natalie and Michael met when they were 16. They were at Independence High School. They've known each other, all their lives. And Natalie has said that they were like high school sweethearts. So they met when they were really young, stayed together, got married. So that's kind of like the basis of their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2001, Natalie gets her pharmacy license. That's what she's going to do. And she has her license for 20 years. In between that, she worked at, I think, Access Health most recently. I also heard that she worked at Kroger at one point, but she is a community pharmacist. She also gets her license to be a diabetic counselor along those lines. And that's what we learned from one of her friends, Jennifer Davis, whose son had diabetes. And I talked with my husband about this, and he said that's not like a online course. Like, you don't just get a certificate to be a diabetic counselor. That's like an extensive commitment to be able to get that kind of certification. So she knew a lot about diabetes.
Oh, yeah. If you give people wrong information, they die.
Oh,
I mean, it's that simple. So, yeah.
Right.
But I didn't realize that really before the trial.
No, I didn't either. But actually, if you go back in the Register Herald archives, there is a story from 2017 that Jessica did. And it is an article she wrote about Natalie Cochran and Jennifer Davis. And Natalie had essentially organized I don't know if I think it was either a 5K or there was also like a motorcycle rally.
Mm-hmm.
But she organized a fundraiser for Jennifer Davis and Chris Davis's son for insulin.
Well, nice.
As like a, promoting it. I don't know where the funds went, but I'm sure it was like for, a good cause.
Mm-hmm.
But
do you remember, is it on WVNS or
no,
would it be
it's on the Register
here? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. You'd have to, if you go to the Register Herald
Mm-hmm.
and like search our archives, that's the best way to find it.
Oh, yeah. And on that, Jozy is a reporter with the Register Herald, the Beckley newspaper. So credentials are there.
Thanks.
Awesome articles have been coming out daily. So be sure to follow her on Facebook. But yeah, I'll search. But tell me about the 5K while I'm looking.
Okay. Anyways, it just the fact that it existed, she was very invested in Jennifer Davis and their son, and just what they were going through, learning about their kid having type 1 diabetes. That's not an everyday thing. It's a big challenge. So she was apparently very, very supportive of that in like 2017.
That's great.
Yeah. So prior to that, 2013. Natalie and Michael start Technology Management Solutions. So they started that business first.
Right.
The IT business.
Okay, yeah.
2017, they start Tactical Solutions Group. And that was the business that they said was getting government contracts, and that was used for the Ponzi scheme. So another thing that was mentioned is that apparently on their website, Tactical Solutions was certified as a women-owned business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they said they just did that to help get more government contracts, but the prosecution is arguing that, well, if it's women-owned, she's obviously more in control of it than Michael is.
Right. Now, given the benefit of the doubt there, that is a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand, wanting to paint your business in the best light possible in order to get business. I can understand that.
Sure. Which, I mean, it depends on the administration, but I'll say
Right.
like in my industry, I do know there are certain funding opportunities for certain demographics.
Mm-hmm.
And women filmmakers, that's one of them. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt on that one for sure.
Right. So that happens. I also found an article that in 2017, there was an issue with like Shady Spring Athletics, the football team. It says there were some alleged financial wrongdoings that the state were investigating. The state police was investigating, and Natalie was kind of involved in that because she was the treasurer. So,
and is this isn't the Little League? This is something different?
No, this is the Shady Spring Tiger Football League. I don't know if that is a...
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm thinking that may be the Little League.
That Little League.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was there's a list I'm going to bring up here while you're talking, but it says misuse of Little League funds.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
and
that was...
And to clarify, she didn't end up being charged for this, right?
No, not that I saw. It said that she was the treasurer from October 2018 until June 2019. And there were financial records that showed she began making unauthorized withdrawals from the league account in December 2018. And this was reported by Jessica Farish.
Yeah, and I have the, which y'all probably can't see that. It's super small, so apologies. But it says the Shady Spring Youth Baseball League, private boys baseball league, authorities are looking into a variety of suspicious transactions in the league's bank account, including a $1,364 charge to Amazon, investments in crowdfunder.com, $1,142 in charges at Dunham's and Dick's, $402.60 charge to Parker Compound Bows, which every Little League team needs.
Obviously.
$2,099 in Yeti cooler purchases, which could have been a giveaway or something like that. $53 spent at Olive Garden. It's a good steak. $528 for baseball season tickets at WVU University. And maybe, which really, season ticket, that's probably 2 tickets. But I mean, that's just a guess. But yeah, so some suspicious things. Now, granted, she was never charged with any of this to my knowledge, but it's good to know.
Right. So that happened. And then, let's see, where was I? Okay. So late 2018, after the debacle comes out with the Little League, Michael is hospitalized. It's been talked about a lot in the trial. October and November, he's in the hospital. Now, I don't know what he had. Everything has been thrown out, essentially. He's had seizures. He had a brain tumor. There was brain swelling. There was mold exposure, mold poisoning. So we haven't seen any medical records from that, but the defense has claimed a numerous amount of illnesses.
That's my first point of frustration here. Yeah. I'm just going to lay out. It seems like no one can get medical records of anyone involved. Because they've talked about Natalie having, and then, Van down by the river. I mean, with all due respect, Matthew Victor, he's just, and I'm not even going to attempt to do an accent. I have a good enough accent already.
He's Polish.
But so he's basically saying, like, but you don't know that she didn't go to Duke, and you didn't know that she didn't have cancer. And how do we not know? Is HIPAA law that locked down that we can't know? Like, no, there was no diagnosis. Or, hey, yeah, by the way, she had melanoma. Here it is. What's the deal?
So I think that kind of speaks to the prosecution's strategy a little bit. So obviously, this case was supposed to be prosecuted by Benjamin Hatfield, who retired, or I guess resigned under really suspicious circumstances in October, right? So I think that from what I heard, Ben's strategy was that he was going to pursue the cancer diagnosis and, really dig into whether or not that was true. But I don't think that these prosecutors, Tom Truman, Ashley Akerd, that's their strategy, is to pursue that, is to focus on that. So I think they have the medical records, but, in order to present them, they'd have to subpoena the doctors that are from, Duke, have them come in, or have them,
Let's go. Everybody,
yeah. I just don't think that's their strategy, that's what they wanted to do. So, but also you have to think, so then there's, Michael's medical records. They had subpoenaed all of Michael's doctors. I thought they were going to testify, but the attorneys agreed that they didn't need what's called like a custodian of records. So that means like you don't need the originator of the records to come up and say, yes, these are true. These are, not fake,
right.
and then go on. And so, I mean, the medical experts that the prosecution has brought in, they've had Michael's records. And so there's been no dispute about those records. We haven't really dug into them as much, but I think that's why we haven't heard from Michael's doctors. And as far as Natalie, that's just, I mean, the defense can obviously go that route.
I mean,
but
my
I don't
goodness.
see why.
It shows, okay, well, she said she had cancer.
Yeah.
Here's the proof she doesn't have cancer.
Right.
You know what I mean? And but we'll get into that too. I think that Truman is doing the best with what he's been dealt, and he was thrown into a bee's nest.
Yeah. I mean, they got this case in September of 2024.
Yeah.
And I went back and looked. So Matthew Victor has been on this case since she was indicted in 2021.
Yeah.
Stanley came in at like 2022, 23. But Matthew's had this case for 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is ultimately, I think if they lose, it's the prosecution change. I mean, I mean, he's thrown into this highly publicized case, and it's already weird with the file exchange and not, the defense not seeing everything. So,
but I think overall too, it's a very difficult case to prove.
Oh yeah.
So I think they've,
Well, I think it is, but I think that there's 20 witnesses they didn't call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we'll get into all that. So keep laying it out. This is great.
Okay. So late 2018, Michael has his doctor's visits. And then February 2019, I don't know when this happened. I think it was after, actually, so let me skip that. I think that was after Michael's death.
Sure.
So so February 6th, 2019, Michael passes out in his house, is unconscious. He's taken to the hospital. They say he has a glucose of 21. All of that drama in the hospital plays out. He goes from Beckley to Charleston and then back to Beckley to hospice. February 11th, just after midnight, he dies. Now,
on February 6th, what is the time frame from when he hits the floor to when they ultimately ended up taking him to the hospital?
So I can get into that, or I can just... because I have that breakdown.
Let's save it. But I just want to make a note that there are some suspicious things with the time frame there.
Right.
Which we'll fully express. And y'all get comfortable because I don't know how long this is. I don't know how long this is going to be.
I've got pages.
Yeah.
There's been over 30 hours of testimony. So
yeah. So I figure it would be good. I mean, there's a lot of objections flying around. So there's not going to be one during this podcast, and we can talk about it. Okay. So yeah, keep going.
Okay. So February 11th, he dies. And then sometime between, I think probably not long after, he's buried at Sunset Memorial Gardens. There was an issue with from what it was reported, getting his family there and them having his father and his stepmother. There was a lot of issues there with how that was set up. But anyways, so he is embalmed and interned. That's the right word. Yeah.
What's the so I got a lot of questions. People were saying check into Rose and Questenberry Funeral Home, and they were talking about the expediting of him being cremated.
I mean, I've heard a lot of accusations about that. All we know, or all I know at this point, is that a medical examiner and a forensic pathologist have both kind of questioned the embalming. So the medical examiner said that he was embalmed, but 7 months after, when he was exhumed, that his body was decaying, which that's kind of what embalming is supposed to prevent, or at least delay,
and
right?
I've got to correct myself. So he wasn't cremated?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously he wasn't. Yeah.
But Natalie, I think people questioned that, but Natalie even said he had an incident when he was young with fire and he did not want to be cremated.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So I wanted to clarify that. And disclaimer, y'all, listen, we're going to do the best we can here. I'm sure we're going to miss some things, but probably not much because Josy's pretty prepared. But take all this with a grain of salt. But we're gonna
Verify.
try to stay. We're gonna stay solely on the verified facts, and I'm gonna spew in my random opinions every now and then. But so where are we at?
So about the embalming, again, he was exhumed 7 months after he died, and then re-exhumed in 2023. So this would have been 4 years after he died. And the doctor who performed the autopsy on him then said if he was embalmed, it was done very poorly.
Right.
So that's all we really know about that, besides all the speculation.
Okay, gotcha. So that's really all that matters. Is there's no documented proof of any kind of wrongdoing there. So there's that question.
Right. So then we jump forward to about May 6th, 2019. So apparently Natalie Cochran, she went to Shady Spring and Independence High School, and she's giving out scholarships that were from Tactical Solutions. So that's the sponsoring agency of these scholarships. And some of the Cochran family members get some of these scholarships. There's a Rachel Carrico, who's a niece, and Abigail Jessup, and some other people are awarded these scholarships. We'll find out later what happens to them, but that happens in May. So this is 3 months after Michael dies. She's on a stage awarding scholarships to people from her business. So then...
Which is disgusting. Keep going.
Okay. That comes in later.
Yeah.
Okay, so then July, it says... the Register Herald, there's an article that says Natalie is being accused of money laundering. So this is the first time we kind of learn that something is going on with her businesses. So Michael died in February. This is now July. So there's a civil document filed in the U.S. Southern District Court that alleges that Natalie and her late husband used 2 government contract businesses to scam investors out of at least $2.8 million in a Ponzi scheme. So that is the first headline.
That was the charge? Or
there
that
was no
was what
charge.
They originally...
There was no charge at that point. It was just saying that they're being accused and we're looking into it.
Gotcha. Okay. And
So,
that how did the...
Actually, no, there were
Take your time, because there's 2.8 and then she ended up being convicted of 2.5, correct?
That number has changed so many times. I don't know what's true.
I mean,
it's over. I usually say over 2 million, and we're on the safe side.
A crap ton of money.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So July is when the charges. I think July is when the charges come out.
Okay.
She's basically being accused of this at this point, by the.
And this is July after Michael has passed
the
away.
same year that he passed away, July.
Okay.
U.S. Southern District Court.
2019.
2019.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So then a day after that comes out that she's been accused of this, she files for bankruptcy.
Nice.
Yeah, which of course you do. And she kind of starts painting the picture that Michael's the one spending all these things. He had cars, he wanted to get a plane, a lot of the spending was done by him. If he bought jewelry, it was because, he wanted to spoil her or whatever.
Sure.
So that starts coming out.
And it's proven they did have a lot of the things.
Yeah.
They went to a lot of vacations, a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But, successful people do that too.
Yeah.
But yes.
So that is...
So the money is nowhere, it's spent.
Oh, I mean, they're filing for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So she's like, there's no money.
Was there ever any theories of where the money could have potentially gone or not? I haven't heard any myself, but I was thinking crypto or is there possibilities for different random things there? But
I mean, I don't really think they're...
To be honest, I think they just spin it to myself.
Right. Well, I mean, that was the whole point of the scheme, right? It was, how did Victor word it? Steal from Peter to pay Paul, right? That was essentially what they did. You get one investor to invest in the business, and then you get another investor to also invest so you can pay off the first investor. So that's how the
Yep.
Ponzi scheme works.
Yep. And the sign is still up on, what's it called? Eisenhower
I have not seen it. Jessica told me that.
It's
in
still there.
court. Yeah. I want to.
So I was like, are they still, I mean, they're not operating, obviously.
Obviously, no. No. The state lists them as like, I think they went inactive in like 2021.
Yeah. Okay. And she was convicted of this. Michael wasn't. So we have to assume it was her.
Well, she pled guilty.
Yeah.
right?
She pled guilty and she ended up getting 11 years. Yeah. Still in prison.
Yep.
Michael was never charged because he passed away first. So Michael is not a felon.
Right. But I think, what do they say? That you can have like a unindicted co-conspirator, and that would have indicated that he was involved.
So even post...
I mean, they wouldn't have charged
Mortem.
him, but they would have charged her with conspiring with him
Okay.
to do it.
So would they have a reason to have not done that, though?
Because they didn't think he was involved.
Okay. Have they provided proof as to why? Because there seems to be a really early line drawn between the Cochran family and not only one friend, really, and the police. And I'm just curious why there was this non-cooperation so early. I don't
know. And I haven't really got the time to go back and dig into, his name was Thomas Treadway, into his messages, because he testified on the day that the kids testified. And so I just really didn't have a chance to dig into it.
Did you? You listened to it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was there for it. I heard it all.
Yeah.
He said he just had a general distrust of the police.
Sure.
So,
and we'll get into that too. I mean, there's a lot of questions about Thomas.
Oh yeah.
And I know a lot of people who went to Concord and had him as a teacher.
Oh really?
Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, I got to give him the benefit of the doubt. There's people that love him, and there's people that don't. And we're just going to discuss basically his involvement with the case, which is very, very odd.
Right. Yeah.
Because it involved a text message, which we'll get into later. Keep listening, but that's on day 6. So we got a little while.
Yeah. For real.
But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we were at end of July, she files for bankruptcy. And then August 7th, Natalie goes on a bit of like a media tour. We heard from Annie that Annie interviewed Natalie Cochran.
Shout out.
She also went to the Register Herald and interviewed with Jessica Farish. So during this interview, she says, I didn't kill Michael and I loved him. That's kind of her spiel. And then she also said this, which I found was really interesting. She said, it will come out. If it ever goes to trial, I'll get my day. It will come out. Essentially saying like, I will get to prove I'm innocent, which we shall see.
We shall see. I've got my opinions, and we're going to lay them out there. But yeah. So, and to me, if someone's willing to sit down and do an interview, that's a good look.
Well, she had her attorney with her when she does this too. So she retained Robert Dunlap, who's a former Beckley City Council member, also ran for mayor, but wasn't successful. But she retained him as her bankruptcy attorney. And while she's going around to interview with local media, he is with her every step of the way. So,
and that's smart. I mean, regardless, because so many people have been railroaded. Obviously, over the years. I mean, I think we've put over 200 people to death knowingly after on death row.
Right.
People make mistakes. This isn't pro-police. This isn't pro-Natalie. It's just, here's what it is. But yes. So the media tour, do we know how long of an interrogation she had with the police? Or did she offer this information to them with a lawyer?
I mean... What did they say? How many times? So when she talked with police, I don't think she had her attorney with her. They said they met with her once, I think around this time in 2019, and she was with her mother. And then 2 other times they called her. So I don't think Dunlap was present.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they were, again, trying to be very, I think, casual with this because there were, yes, she was accused in the Ponzi scheme, but again, being accused and being charged are,
sure.
very, very different.
Yeah. And, good on her for going and cooperating. I wouldn't have blamed her if she took her lawyer.
Right.
I'm going to refer to the OJ case some through this, but he done an interview initially by himself. It was an awful interview and they screwed up and never talked to him again.
Yeah.
So I recognize the police, if someone's cooperative, they want to keep that cooperation. They don't want to, start by hammering them with questions.
Right.
And, I get all that. So go ahead.
Okay. So after the August interview, it comes out that Natalie, August 7, 2019, we had an article that says Natalie's under criminal investigation by the Raleigh County Prosecutor's Office into the death of her husband. So he died in February, we're in August. Now they're saying we suspect her in his death. So this was August.
Okay. Did they say, they're not going to say why.
No, and obviously we all know about the insulin now. That's being alleged as the murder weapon. I think it was rumored about the insulin, but insulin doesn't show up in an article until 2023.
And we're going to break that freaking insulin down. I
have so many questions for you.
Yeah, I have never screamed at the freaking TV more in my life.
Yeah,
but sure. And I get it, but I'm just sitting there saying, why do we not have 5 more medical professionals testifying?
Mm-hmm.
I know resources are limited, but my goodness, it was driving me nuts, but carry on.
So then after that, we have a story from August 10th, which says Cochran leaves students hanging. So in May, she's giving out scholarships, and now it's August and there's no money for those scholarships. And in the story, Jessica talked to some of the parents of the recipients, and they were essentially like, she screwed us. My kids were relying on these scholarships. They're supposed to be full rides. We didn't apply. We denied federal aid. We denied state aid. It's too late to apply for that. My kid's trying to go to college and now they have no money to do it. So that's when that comes out. And I think at that point, the community is really upset with her.
Why would she offer it?
I don't know.
Just look good, or... this is all speculation.
I would love to ask her.
Yeah. And again, Natalie, listen, she's a felon for the Ponzi scheme.
Mm-hmm.
This is alleged for the murder trial. Obviously, disclaimer. But in my book, it's pretty apparent she's not a good person. Say what you want with that, but there's people that lost their retirement.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that went into financial hardship for the rest of their life. There's kids now that didn't go to college on time.
Mm-hmm.
Not good.
Yeah.
So however it falls.
And her own nieces were supposed to get some of these scholarships. So they lost out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible. And the family suffers. And I get like Daphne being at the trial. I get it. You're a mom. You love your kid.
Yeah.
You believe certain things that may not be true. You see the community attacking your lovely daughter who you've seen grow up as a baby. I get it.
Oh yeah.
And this is, I'm gonna navigate around all that as much as possible. This isn't against them. Again, my heart goes out to her, to the kids. It's just sad. Mm-hmm. There's nothing possibly good about this whole thing.
For sure.
The only thing is seeking the proper form of justice, or if natural causes was the thing, which we'll see. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So then August 15th now, again, this is still 2019. The state police starts investigating $10,000 missing in the Shady Spring Youth Baseball Incorporation. We
got to get them bows. We got to kill some deer. Should I make jokes?
I mean, if you can't, why not?
Like, listen, joke disclaimer.
Yeah.
I'm like, this podcast, we kind of discuss not things this dark usually, but I make light of things. Mm-hmm. Please don't hate me. This is none of this is to, and I tell you what, the defense has disrespected Michael more than anyone, and we'll get into that. But this is not to disrespect him. A family lost their father. That can't be said enough. But I probably will make a few jokes, not about that, obviously, but just know that coming in, and tell me if that's right or wrong. But go ahead.
I think that's understandable. We're all humans.
Yeah,
I know.
It's just this is going to be the biggest vent session.
Oh yeah,
and I don't know none of these people. I know
right.
of Thomas,
right?
But that's really it.
But this is your community too.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people are engaging, because this is my backyard. This is impacting people that I know one way or the other.
Yeah, for sure, and it's important. I mean, you want to get this stuff right, and you want to know that your prosecution team.
Mm-hmm.
Can fire at all cylinders when they need to.
Right.
And Truman obviously has 40 years experience?
Yeah, 30 or so. He's been retired since 2022-ish, I think. But yeah, before that, lots of years.
Really good dude. I'll get into it later, but go ahead.
Okay, so that now she's accused in some baseball stuff, or not accused, it's just they're investigating some missing funds. Natalie is also the treasurer in this organization. So again, she's a treasurer from two organizations, years apart. Funds are missing. Yeah,
it's going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And was this where Treadway was he involved with that little league or something?
I don't know.
I can't remember. I'm not even going to speculate.
I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know much about Thomas besides what was said in court.
Yeah. Well, and that's all we'll get into. I'm not going to speculate as much as possible on this, but I can't remember where I heard that. I'll look that up while you talk. But
okay. So now we're in September 13th, 2019. There's an article that Michael Cochran's remains are being exhumed. So at this point, they're really starting to get into, his death and whether or not Natalie killed him. So his remains are exhumed, which if you're the fan, I can't imagine, going through that, losing him, and then now his body is, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's September 13th. And then September 26th, 2019, it says that she's arrested on 26 federal charges for the Ponzi scheme. So she was accused of this, and they started their investigation. What with this now in July, they were saying, we're looking into this, be aware. And now September, she's arrested and charged with 26 charges in the Ponzi scheme. So they're getting serious with this now. Yeah.
And then again, no evidence. They didn't, that she was a co-conspirator with Michael.
Right.
Gotcha.
So that happened September 26th. And she gets placed on home confinement, it says, under the supervision of her father. So I think there were some issues. She wanted to be able to, I think, go out, pick her kids up from school and stuff like that. So there are some arguments that, she eventually gets placed on a less restrictive home confinement where she can go out, but she has to come back by a certain time, that kind of thing. So that's the end of 2019.
Okay.
So we close out that year. And then,
what a lovely year.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Gosh.
So lovely.
So, and then nothing really happens for another year. So I didn't find anything that we had written until September of 2020. So this is over a year now after Michael has passed. She has been charged. She's on home confinement for the Ponzi scheme, not the murder. But then on 2020, in September of 2020, it says that she is going to admit to the charges in the Ponzi scheme. And now there's a deal that she doesn't get all the charges. But I think the prosecutor in the case says the sentence would have been the same. So that's why.
Really? Why make a deal then? Why would she?
Well, so essentially she didn't get all of the charges. She just got the two. It's part of the way that they bargain and stuff. I don't understand it.
Okay.
Annie would be able to provide a little bit more.
I would think you would make a deal if you do less time. But
yeah.
The prosecutor said this.
So there's an article. Let me go.
Which was Was it Ben at the time? It was Ben at the time.
No,
right?
no, no. So this
Or
would
is
have
different?
been
Oh, it was before.
federal court, right? So this was
okay. Yeah,
the
my
U.S.
fault.
Attorney of the Southern District, Mike Stewart. So this was
Okay.
his case because this was federal charges.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So he said, whether we had 1 count, 26 counts, 126 counts, or 1,000 counts, the sentencing guidelines would have been exactly the same. We did not expose it to risk if it went to jury.
I mean,
Oh no, we didn't want to expose it to risk going to jury. So that's part of it, is that if you get a plea deal, then you don't run the chance that a jury might find her not guilty.
but why would what would be the benefit for her? I'd be like, try me. I about said a cuss word. But
Well, I mean, I think maybe at that point they had showed enough evidence that we can convict.
sure. Well, I mean, yeah.
So-
it's obvious. She knows she did wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is September of 2020. And then again,
COVID.
we don't hear anything for another 4 or 5 months. And I do think COVID played into it. So people generally think that like when you plead guilty, it's like straight to jail. And that's just not really the case. It takes a while. It's usually a 2-step process. So if you're pleading guilty, there's usually a hearing scheduled. You go before the judge and he says like, do you understand that you don't have to do this? Do you understand like you can say not guilty and get out of here? Like not get out of here, but like you can go to trial, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so then if the defendant decides to plead not guilty, they're like, okay, we will now schedule your sentencing for this date. Sometimes it happens together, but with more serious crimes, it usually happens months apart. So she doesn't get sentenced until March of 2021. And again, this is COVID. For whatever reason, it maybe took longer or, that kind of thing.
Did you get COVID?
I did not, surprisingly enough.
Congratulations.
At least never symptomatic.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
You still haven't?
No.
Man, that's rare. I got it like 3 times.
My husband and I, neither one of us, I guess we're just, superhuman.
Yeah. Well,
Vaccines work, right?
good for you. That's great.
No,
You must take 30 supplements a day, which we'll talk about. Man, that drives me nuts. We're going to talk
Fistfuls.
steroids.
Oh, gosh.
We're going to talk Mexican anabolics,
Oh,
all
gosh.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Okay. So then March 2021, she is sentenced for the Ponzi scheme. She gets 135 months. So 11 years, if you math. I did not. That's what my screen says.
130. Hold on. That's
I think it's a little over
like 11 years, 2 months.
I think we've just been saying 11 because it's easier.
We're going to get everything correct
Mhm.
100% on this episode. So I'm going to go, all right, math. It would be 135 divided by 12.
There you go.
Yep. 11 and a quarter.
So
So there you go.
just over 11.
11 years, 3 months. Okay. Look at that.
And I think we talked about last time that there's no like getting out on good behavior
Yeah.
like you would with some state charges. She's serving that full time.
What does that mean anyway? Do you like mop the floors or
I mean, I think if you're like like a model citizen, you don't like
don't
cause,
start fights?
right?
Yeah.
Eat your vegetables.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
okay, so that's March 21.
Do they have vegetables in prison?
I mean, don't they have like? Isn't that like all regulated by the state and federal
I mean,
government?
I would imagine
Yeah.
they have like a pretty wholesome meal of stuff, slop, whatever you want to call it. But go ahead. Nutrients of
Yeah.
some sort.
Well, I mean, she has lost quite a bit of weight.
Man,
Since she's been in there, so.
she aged. And I can understand why, but
yeah, some of our articles, you can just kind of see the progression as she comes back to court,
yeah.
just how much, she's just changed physically from being in prison.
So obviously it's weighed on her.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I mean,
Yeah.
regardless of, the trial and everything like that, like being in prison, period, I'm assuming it's not a joyous
Oh,
experience.
it'd be awful, especially coming from the life she had.
Oh, yeah, right?
And it seems like she came from a good family,
Mm-hmm.
grew up around here,
Mhm.
standard living. They grew up and started this thing, and eventually it just spiraled.
Right.
And whether it was addiction to spending or maybe someone was a gambling addict, I mean, who knows?
I mean, I think you could argue that they lived like the American dream, right? They met in high school, high school sweethearts. Then they grow up together. They start this business. It gets really successful. They're making millions of dollars. They can buy a nice home. They can provide their children with, anything they want and need. I don't have kids, but I'm sure that's all you can want for yourself and your kids.
I mean, that's it. You just want peace.
Right.
You want peace and you want security and your bills paid and your kids healthy. And I'm sure at some point it was like that. I do think that they had a bad relationship and ultimately things just spiraled. What ended up happening, obviously the spending habits were terrible, and he had motorcycle and the Shelby Cobra, which is
65 Shelby Cobra.
If it was a legitimate 65 Shelby Cobra, that's a 6-figure vehicle.
I don't
even know
nothing about that.
We'll have to look it up. But if it was a kit car, it'd be way cheaper. But if it was a legitimate Shelby Cobra 1965, I don't even know how you buy that.
From the way they described his spending, I don't think he would have gone for the lesser version. Right. The way that they describe him. The way that the defense. Well,
I'm gonna look up. I'm just curious. Look, but see this car.
Oh, so I've never looked this up.
No, this car.
Oh my goodness, that's nice. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Well, see this car right here. They sell kit versions.
Okay.
And they're a lot cheaper. And what they essentially do is they build this car on and please don't tear me up, mechanics, okay? But they build this car on a different car's frame.
Okay.
And it kind of looks the same,
right.
But it's not the same. Now, if it's legitimate, like it says here, $152,000, maybe it was. I don't know. But I'd have to. I don't know. $2.5 million, they had the money to buy it. So,
right.
So I don't know, but take that for what it's worth. But yeah.
Okay.
I hope y'all don't mind the interruptions. I just have so many thoughts.
No.
And I just appreciate this episode so much. Carry on.
Okay. So she gets sentenced to 135 months in March of 2021. And then she doesn't report until May of 2021. So that's when she officially started her sentence. Now, I don't know if there was any time between when she was charged and when she reported that she might got credit for, but I think we can safely say that May 2021 is when she started her 11 years in prison.
Yeah. And, was that the photo of her going to jail in the handcuffs?
I think that was actually from
the first time?
I think that was when she was arrested. So, because again, federal courts, you can't take photos inside. They're very, very secretive. I think that was, I think that's 2019. No, let's see. That's 2020.
This one's when 2020.
She's arrested. Mm-hmm.
She has a shirt on that says...
That photo, we've used that a lot.
Tailgate socialite.
Yeah. That is September of 2020.
Yeah, she's looking like, what you talking about, fool?
Right. But because this was the photo that I'd only seen of her previously. And then when I actually started covering this 2 years later, she didn't look anything like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then that versus now. Well, when was this one? The one with her in the orange.
Okay, so that's...
When she was indicted?
Yeah, so that's 2021.
Okay.
Because, so if she's in orange, she's in state custody. She's at the Southern Regional Jail. Yeah. When she is in brown, she is in federal custody. Because that's, I guess, their uniform for federal inmates.
Okay.
At least that's what I've come to find.
That sounds right. I think people can fact check us on that and we'd be okay.
Yeah.
That when makes sense.
Because there's been times that she's been transported from, I think it was was it Hazel? I can't remember. It's Hazleton, the Federal Corrections Institute in Hazleton, in Brewston Mills. So a lot of times she's been transported straight from there to court prior to trial, and she's in brown. But when she's had to stay at Southern Regional Jail, which is in Raleigh County, she's appeared in orange.
Well, at least they mix up the color palette.
I mean, yeah, makes it easier to tell.
Yeah. And then this is a photo of her pretty well now. That was was it the first hearing of the trial?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was probably December 2024. That's
Okay.
that's how she looked, and that's how she looks now.
Okay. And while she's in court, she has a normal outfit on.
Right. So that is because which it's typical for all trials. They don't want the jury to know that she's in custody, right? Obviously, we know, or they know, that she's been charged in the Ponzi scheme. I don't know if it's been said explicitly, but they should know that she's in federal prison. But again, to give the appearance of innocence, or at least not to give the appearance that she's not guilty, or to, how do I word that?
I think you don't want her looking like the Hamburglar walking in.
Right. She needs to be given the fairest and best chance to prove her innocence, or not prove her innocence, just prove she's not guilty. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that? I mean, but I get it. I mean, people are so superficial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, if you see someone in a prison jumpsuit, you're going to just assume that they're guilty, whether or not, they've actually been convicted. It's just that appearance overall. I mean, plus too, like every time that she's appeared in court, she's been in handcuffs, right? Because she's in custody. So again, that's another thing. She's not in handcuffs. So that's, again, but they do this for all.
And because we judge as humans. If you see someone with tattoos on your face, some people will be like, "Oh, I'm going to judge," but they may be the nicest people in the world. But I get it. I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Now, I will say, I feel like they've given her a bit more leeway, because technically, as soon as she leaves that courtroom, right, she's back in handcuffs because she is in federal prison. Like, she is, serving out her sentence, even while I don't know how that works while she's here, if it still counts and that kind of thing, but still, like, she's in custody, but they've let her move around the courtroom. Now, I don't have a lot of experience to compare this to, whether or not this is the way with most defendants, but like, she's been allowed to move around on her side of the bench,
hugging people.
Yeah, her family members have all come up to her, hugged her kids, she's gotten to speak with them,
which a lot of courts don't allow.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they've given her it feels like they've given her some leeway.
Oh yes, they have.
Yeah.
And that leads to another form of frustration. Objection. Leniency, objection, leading the witness, objection, this is not about the financial crime. I'm like, oh my God, can someone stand up and say, that's the motive? That's the motive we're trying to prove, bruh.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, too, before this even happened, they tried to get it thrown out that she was ever convicted, right? They did not want the jury to know that she was convicted.
He sure brought it up on day 6.
I mean, we all know it, right? But like, the judge already ruled that the prosecution has, they have proven enough evidence that they can bring up her Ponzi scheme charges.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm trying to hold my bias. My frustration comes from knowing how he died, and then I'm not feeling like we're effectively expressing this situation.
Right.
And the prosecution has it. I haven't heard him object once. I haven't heard him object one time.
I feel like they really have let the defense kind of have a lot of leeway, because if you watch them, I mean, Matthew has brought up so many, like, just random diagnoses of Michael. Seizures, epilepsy, brain tumors, like anything and everything you can imagine was wrong with Michael. And he's just brought them up like, well, did you know this? Did you know that? Well,
and it's all speculation.
Again, yes, now they haven't got to present their case fully yet, but like, there's just so many that I feel like is leading questions that the prosecution hasn't, and I don't know their strategy, but they haven't prevented him from doing any of this. And I think, honestly, we're at the point where, because they have allowed him to do this, I don't see how they can object now.
It's
anything.
It's just a bunch of mud. It's just so, I mean, he didn't allow the prosecution to present three sentences.
Oh, yeah. He was anytime there was even the mention of a medical diagnosis on their part, him and Stanley both jumped right in there. Absolutely not. Well, I mean, I think even at one point with one of the friends, Stephanie Hamilton, they're like, well, how do you know? Who did you? That's hearsay. You can't say that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Oh, and the leading was insane, which we'll get into day 6. But he'll literally say, don't you believe that you were thriving for your father's attention, and you were so sad that he wouldn't pay attention to you, and you just wanted him to? I mean, I'm just making that up, but that's essentially what it was.
Right.
Yes or no? And then she'd be like, yes. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. I mean, objection, leading the witness. Mm-hmm. Where is that?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's some strategy in there. If I was an attorney, I can understand it more. But I mean, now a lot of times when there are like young children, an attorney will ask permission to ask leading questions because, they're more difficult to pull the answers
these kids
out
are of age. They're very smart, very well put together. I'm not saying be mean or disrespectful.
Right.
I'm just saying present your case. Mm-hmm. It's like, because they are essentially painting, which I know we're jumping ahead, but they're essentially painting this picture that what I got from it, that Michael was a bad father.
Mm-hmm. That was the overall perception from their testimony.
Which I don't know him.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know these kids' experience. Mm-hmm. There may have been some issues there. But as far as the state went, I was just like, man, and it's not like, we'll have to do 20 minutes on Kirkpatrick. He is the best person.
He's my favorite
I've ever seen in a courtroom.
I'm so sad he's retiring.
The best person I've ever seen in a courtroom is Judge Kirkpatrick. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's so professional. Yes. I mean, Victor is just sitting there objecting every 2 minutes, and he's just like, overruled. And then he's like, oh yeah, that one's sustained, the whole time for 8 hours.
If you watch him too, he like leans back and he looks so chill, but that's just like, but he's paying attention, but he just looks so chill.
He's the perfect example of a West Virginian to me. Just down home, friendly, mm-hmm. smart as a tack.
Yes.
Knows their job, after he retires for the second time, and we can get on that too. On the a lot of people don't know that he came back to take this case.
Right.
So we'll get into that too. And I'm jumping ahead. We're about to get into day 1 of the trials. Yeah. There's so many things here. But go ahead.
Okay, so we were at May 21st, 2021, when Natalie goes to prison for the federal Ponzi scheme charges. So then the next thing that happens is November 19th, 2021. Natalie Cochran is indicted for first-degree murder in the death of Michael Cochran. So that 2021, end of 2021. So what, 3 years now? Michael died in February 2019. So 3 years after he dies, she is indicted for his murder while she is in federal prison.
Yeah. And that's 2021.
Yes, 2021.
And we're here 4 years later, finally trying this case, which I think is a big issue too.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of foggy memories going on, a lot of, unrecalls.
I will say, I think it helped them select a jury, if anything else, because I think people did forget.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. They probably would have had to move it out of Raleigh County because there was a lot of venom early on.
Yes.
Like, people were mad. They knew 5 people that lost their money. Right. They wanted...
Well, the scholarship people were very... Honestly, so when this was happening, I had just moved to Beckley. I was married. We were moving in to Beckley because that's where my husband's family is from. And that was the first thing I remember, was hearing about these scholarship kids who were promised money, and this woman, promised them money and then took it back. That was the first thing I heard about this case.
What's the dollar amount there? Do you know how much total with those scholarships?
I don't. I mean, I think the thing was, it wasn't just that they were promised 1 year. They were promised like all 4 years. So I think 1 year it was
Jesus, so full rides?
Mm-hmm, so like $7,500 for like 1 year.
Okay, so partial.
But it was like in state. So like I
Seems
read,
like tuition at WVU is 20-some thousand a year for in-state.
Let's see.
So, but now that would, That'd cover probably a semester at like Bluefield State, Concord.
Again,
maybe. I don't know the price.
I don't remember exactly, but I know that was at least one scholarship amount. But I do know that some of the scholarships were supposed to be completely full rides for all 4 years.
Okay. So, yeah. And it's obvious she was just like, yeah, you get a car, everybody gets
Essentially.
So, yeah, it's like, well, why not just go down swinging if and to clarify, she was raising money with this pretense. Is that correct?
So
or was it just like, hey?
Well, I think what was happening was essentially she was saying that the business is doing so well, Tactical Solutions is doing so well that we can afford to be charitable. You kind of expect that, right? A lot of, if you're a community, a local business and you're doing really well, you want to have good press, you want to give back.
Yeah.
And that was her way of giving back, was offering these scholarships.
So give her the benefit of the doubt on that. She offered him and then she spent it and was like, oops, do.
I think she knew at that point, because 2 months later, she's filing for bankruptcy. I don't think there was this perception that like, oh, the money is there and now it's gone.
Right.
Right. I think personally, I will give my opinion on this. I do think she knew the money wasn't there because, the contracts were fake. Whether or not you think Michael knew, she knew there were no contracts. She knew they weren't raking in millions and millions of dollars. She knew that all this money was coming from, local investors. All of her assets are seized around this time. Like, I don't know why she did this.
Yeah. How can they present like she was just an unknowing housewife in court, knowing that she was convicted of and is spending time in prison?
Well, because it's interesting because Matthew has said that, yes, she's a convicted felon. He calls her a bad girl, which I think is so weird.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah. Michael is a man's man, but Natalie's a bad girl.
Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever. I'm like, that's
right.
Disrespect.
But with her kids, that wasn't brought up. With her kids, it was, well, what do you think? Which is, that's fine. They're allowed to give, how did you feel about the situation? I think that's valid. But it wasn't brought up. Like, you do know that your mom pled guilty to these charges. Whether or not your dad was involved, your mom is in prison. She admitted to this. So I don't know why that wasn't asked.
They were 100% coached. Now, listen, they love their mom. It's evident.
Yes.
And that's great. Everyone should love their mom. They're all not perfect. They don't all steal $2 million, but some of them are a little sketchy. But so I get it. But they were obviously coached.
So there was one instance where the prosecutor does ask, like, how many times did you interview her? Where are your notes? And they're like, oh, it was only once and we didn't take notes. But, he didn't push that issue. And
yeah, I don't feel, like you mentioned, I think Victor's just walking the dog through the courtroom.
I think so. He's doing his job.
As much as he annoys me, he's really, really good. But me personally, if I was on that jury, that wouldn't be good for me. Just seeing all this, I would see it as desperation. But then again,
it's really hard to say what they think,
It's hard to say. And I'm sure, I'm sure they're not even looking at their cell phones this weekend.
They better not, because if they ruin this case, I'm going to be so mad.
Let the judge retire.
I'm going to be
okay?
so mad.
Let the judge retire.
For
Let's
real.
Be done. But yeah, I mean, listen, they're doing their job. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's see. So she's indicted November 19th of 2021 with first-degree murder of Michael Cochran. And then in the day after that, the prosecutor, Benjamin Hatfield at the time, he gives an interview with the Register Herald and just says, like, yes, we have the evidence. We think she did it. And, we think it's because Michael wasn't involved in the Ponzi scheme, but he was finding out, that kind of thing. And it also kind of rehashes some of the things that Natalie said that article does in 2021 in November. And it suggests that, like, Michael was the one spending all of the money from the scheme, that Natalie was just kind of I'm just doing whatever I can to make him happy, that he likes money and I just want to appease him.
That's not fair. They shouldn't be allowed to present that. He's dead. And she was convicted
of the scheme. Yeah.
Yeah. Carry on. I'm going to stop interrupting y'all. I just get so anxious.
Yeah. So that's November of 2021. Also, this is the first time I read this. So Natalie says that Michael has struggled with substance abuse disorder and the misuse of steroids. And the Bolts had intervened to get help for Michael. And the Bolts are Michael's mother and stepfather.
Donna, I'm so sorry. We're going to get into it.
Mm-hmm. So, and then again, November 2021, quoting something that I think Natalie said maybe a year ago when she was sentenced. Natalie was like, he was loving 1 minute and then he took a sledgehammer to the furniture the next. To protect the kids, I started to get into the attitude where I'd always given to him. So again, painting the picture that maybe she knew about the scheme, but she was just going along with Michael.
Yeah. Which, again, conviction.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, freedom of speech, especially when the prosecutor lets you.
Mm-hmm.
Carry on.
Now, also in this article, Donna Bolt was quoted because she spoke when Natalie was sentenced the previous year. And Donna said, while my precious son lay helpless in the hospital, she was sending documents to fool us. She didn't care about anything or anyone, not even Michael, as he lay dying.
And as a reminder, Donna Bolt lost $200,000.
I've seen 200,000. I've also seen 400,000. I'm not sure what the actual amount is, but I do know it stated that it was their retirement.
Yep. And she was essentially the main witness for the prosecution. Is that right? Or at least
for the federal Ponzi scheme.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, when she was, because there's she wrote a letter that got her thrown off this case.
That's different. Yeah.
Yeah, this is different. So I'm talking about the murder case, which we'll get into. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So that happens November 2021. Okay. And now we're getting into 2022, 3 years after Michael has died. The next thing we hear about is January 2022. Natalie gets arraigned. So what happens is you get indicted, and then several months later, you're arraigned, where you can say guilty, not guilty, that kind of thing.
That'd be good to know, because I know a lot of people question the process, and thankfully, Court TV is doing a really good job.
It's like they're a journalist's best friend. They have the best audio. I can go back, like if I can't hear something because I'm recording it live, obviously as well. Yeah. But I'll go back and listen.
Yeah, and shout out. Actually, it's a local company in Beckley live streaming it, Cucumber and Company. Shout out to Dwayne Muncie. They are pretty much the best live stream company in Southern West Virginia that I know, but highly recommend.
Yeah. And they're super nice.
Yeah, very nice. Dwayne's great.
Yeah. So now 2022, 3 years after Michael's died, we're in January of 22, and Natalie Cochran pleads not guilty to her husband's death, which is, I mean, most people when they're arraigned plead not guilty. Whether or not they plea later on, most people when they're arraigned plead not guilty. It's just a thing.
Yep. OJ did. I mean,
there you go.
Not that that's affiliated.
I know, but yeah. So let's see. Also, at this point, this is the first time I saw that we get the results of the autopsy. So if you remember, September of 2019, Michael was exhumed, and the West Virginia State Medical Examiner's Office did an autopsy, but we haven't heard anything about what happened with that.
We haven't?
From 2019, when he was exhumed, up until 2022, when she's pleading not guilty, we haven't heard anything about the autopsy.
When was the second exhumation?
It was 2023.
Okay, we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
I want your opinion on if that hurt or helped.
Okay. So January 2022, the article that was published again by Jessica Farish, she stated that the medical examiner listed the manner of death. Initially, it had been natural causes when he died in 2019, but it had since changed as of January 2022 to undetermined, which I don't know if that helps or hurts, but essentially it's saying it's not natural, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So that's January 2022. And then the trial was scheduled to start on June 6th, 2022. So that was the initial trial date, which honestly, I don't think it's that abnormal for big cases like this to get continued at least once, right? To at least take a year from when they are arraigned to when they go to trial. That's not abnormal.
Sure.
5 years or 4 years is abnormal.
It's a lot of work.
Right. So then June 6, 2022 is when she was supposed to go to trial for Michael's death. That gets pushed back to December 12th, 2022. And then it just keeps getting pushed back, obviously. So I have a little note here that I started covering. So my first story that I did about this case was November 30th of 2022. And I wrote, new trial date expected in the Cochran murder case.
What all did you know at that point?
Honestly, nothing. I knew like that she was convicted of the Ponzi scheme and that she was charged with her murder or with her husband's death and that insulin was somehow involved. But I really didn't read up that much on it. I was very happy that I wasn't covering it, that Jessica was still at the newspaper at the time, that this was going to be her case. She'd followed it since 2019. I was looking forward to reading about what, she wrote. But I was looking forward to not covering it.
Right.
Little did I know.
Well, you're doing an awesome job, and a lot of people really appreciate it because this, there's cases, well, not this big, but there's so much that goes on in these proceedings that people don't realize. I know I don't.
Right, or understand.
Yeah, understand. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the big word.
Yeah. So then I started covering it November 30th, 2022, and she gets a new trial date, and the trial has since been moved to, May 1st of the 2023. So this is November 2022. It gets moved to May 1st of 2023.
And all this time she's pumping iron in the yard.
Oh,
just,
allegedly.
Getting the, okay.
We don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But she's in federal prison. So I think that played into a little bit of, there was no sense of urgency to get her to trial, even though obviously the family wanted closure, both sides, I'm sure, but she's not going anywhere. It's not like she's being just held in state prison on the county's dime, waiting for trial. She's in federal custody serving out her sentence.
Right.
So, but again, now it wasn't like they were, making it long on purpose, because then she could, accuse them of a non-speedy trial.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So, but again, it's taking forever. So then that was all that I reported in 2022. So then jump forward to 2023, 4 years after Michael's death. My article is from April 20th, 2023, because she was supposed to go to trial in May, right? That was the plan. So this is April 23. We find out, crazy, the prosecution has dropped her murder charge, which we were like, what's going on?
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. So they drop her murder charge, and the prosecutor is like, we're going to re-exhume Michael's body. And you're just like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
And this body has been underground for 4 years?
4 years.
So imagine how that went.
Yeah. I mean, I think what are they called? What's that term to refer to doctors who do autopsies? Pathologist, right? Forensic pathologist. There it is. He says that Michael is essentially bones. So because he gets it not long after that. So he gets it sometime end of 2023. Michael's body is exhumed and he starts his autopsy.
And is this due to a test that Hatfield discovered?
Again, so Annie said that she knew what the test was called. I don't remember him ever saying the test. He just said that, that this pathologist can perform a specialized test not previously performed by the state's medical examiner that detects insulin levels in tissue samples.
Okay.
However, there were no tissue samples, which we later learned. But again, that was the whole point, was to test the tissue samples and be able to determine what the insulin levels were.
So, but where I'm confused is they had the insulin levels at the hospital. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. But I don't, honestly, at this point, we knew very little about Michael's conditions, right? Because I remember I quoted Ben Hatfield at the time saying that Michael's glucose levels when he died, or around the time that he died, were 21. So he he knew that he was releasing that, but they wanted more information about the insulin. I don't know what he intended to prove. And again, I'm not going to ask him.
Sure.
But there was supposed to be some super specialized test that would detect the insulin levels. And, it was touted as this like, magic card or whatever that was going to give him magic bullet. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. Well,
but that was going to help him convict Natalie.
Yeah. And, another source of frustration is with the hospital with me, because he comes in, sugar's 21.
Yeah.
Which is not, your sugar's not going to be 21. Unless you're a diabetic or unless you took insulin, your sugar's just not going to be 21.
No. And I think there's a quote that Stephanie said that I remember that like, or maybe it was either Stephanie or it was Jennifer. And one of them said like, if you're 21, you're in a coma.
I mean, pretty much I've been there. Mm-hmm. I've been under 30. I've been under 30.
Right. But you're actively doing things to get out of 30.
Well,
right?
I mean, you get to that level and you kind of got to depend on others.
Yeah, I understand.
Which is what was going on. Mm-hmm. But, and we'll walk through it on the days of the trial, but I have a full explanation of why I know he had been jacked up with insulin. But we'll get into that. But yes, second exhumation. And to clarify, we knew his glucose. We didn't know his insulin levels in the hospital.
True. Yeah, they're very different. Again, the medical experts have said there should have been a test that they should have done when Michael was admitted that would have detected his insulin levels, which I think that's right. Yeah. And that way they could have, before they had started meds to increase his glucose, they could have determined what was kind of the cause, what was going on. Because once you start giving him medication to increase his blood sugar, then the medication is going to show up in the tests.
Yeah.
But again, I think you have to, I really wish that they had subpoenaed or they were going to interview one of the doctors or I don't know.
Interview everyone.
I know. But I think we would have heard from them that like, Natalie is saying he fell. So they're thinking head trauma. And she's telling him he has a history of seizures. So they're going off of what they're telling them to base their, I guess, strategy for treatment. So his blood sugar was low, yes, but I think they're more focused on head trauma. They're more focused on his history of seizures than they are his insulin level. And I think that if maybe they had just been given a blank slate and told, here's someone at 21, go figure it out, maybe they would have done this test that could have helped him increase his blood sugar in a way that, wasn't detrimental, where he didn't go back down again. But, we'll never know.
I mean, listen, people get complacent at their job and this and that, whatever. Yeah. I don't want to place blame on anyone, but it's frustrating to me that, one, I don't even think, did the first autopsy, did they look for the potential punctures?
I don't think they would have even had the ability to detect something. Okay.
Well, go ahead.
Then, if you have to actually straight up inject yourself with a syringe, I mean, I know the needles are very, very tiny. How long does it take you to heal?
So, there would have been one chance that they could have saw this. Yeah. And that's if she would have hit a vein.
Okay.
If she would have hit some type of vein, it would have caused a bruise. And they would have been able to tell.
Pharmacists are given years of instruction on how to give shots, period.
Right.
So, I mean, she would have a lot of training.
Yeah.
Because they administer flu shots, they administer all kinds of shots. So,
yeah. And Victor keeps saying, well, they would have fought. Yeah. And I'm like, not if he was asleep. I mean, there's so little. It'd have been, that'd have been it. And you do it kind of quick, and there'd have been, especially if, let's just say he was medicated with some type of sleep medication. I don't know if that came out, but let's just say, for instance, no possible way to have felt it. The only way they would have got lucky is if allegedly she somehow hit some type of blood vessel or vein. It would have made it kind of cause a little bruise.
Okay.
Now, it would have healed after days, but they could have saw it at the
Mhm.
hospital easy. They probably could have almost saw it on the autopsy.
If they were looking for it.
Yeah, if they were looking for it.
Now, the autopsy, they did say that he was already decomposing at that point.
Oh, yeah, there's no way they would have saw it then.
Again, like, because I'm sure they do like a general body scan
Sure.
for that. So,
yeah.
But anyways, so the murder indictment is dropped in April 2023, so 4 years after Michael's death. And then several months later, October 24th, 2023, she is re-indicted for murder. So they're like, we essentially between April and October of 23, they've got the results back from the pathologists. They were not released. We didn't know them yet at that time. But now, based on those results, they have re-indicted and are going to, pursue trial again against Natalie.
Did they present the results yet?
So, yes and no, right? Like his actual report was not like put up on the screen for us to all read, but his report is in evidence and he did testify based on his report.
Okay. Is that the guy slick back with black hair or is this a different person?
I think so. Yeah. He had did he have a sweater? I had to watch
this dude. The dude I'm talking about looks straight out of the 1800s. Like he could go on the set of There Will Be Blood.
So. He had like a very pioneer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So that happens between April and October of 23. And then now we reach 2024, finally. So 5 years after Michael's death. And then we are in January of 2024. Natalie pleads not guilty to the murder of her husband again. So she is indicted again, and then she has to be arraigned again. So this has happened in the beginning of 2024. And they say, all right, we're going to go to trial in August. So that was how that was determined. And I think I noted at this point that Stanley Selden is now on the case. So Matthew had been on it since 21 when she was indicted for the murder of her husband.
Ben Stein. Okay, yeah.
I've also heard Groot that he looks like him too.
I'm sure he's a nice dude. I mean, listen, I think they've done a great job doing their job.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So Stanley's on the case now. It's the beginning of January of 2024. And she pleads not guilty. Stanley is also, he's an interesting character. But at this point, he makes just a random statement that well, maybe we want to re-exhume Michael's body and do our own tests. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And so that was a very Stanley thing to come out and say. They don't do that.
They're just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah, I mean, he's just gotten on the case too.
Yeah.
Right. So
and he's like wearing turtlenecks and stuff, looking like Robert De Niro out of Casino. You ever watch that movie?
It's cold though, right? The courtroom is cold. It's like 4 degrees outside. It's cold.
And he got sick, right?
He did. The very last day of trial thus far, he was sick.
Yeah. I hope you're feeling better, Stanley. Good job out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a picture of De Niro in Casino. I swear this is totally the Stanley.
Yeah.
Selden or Sheldon?
Selden. I thought
Selden
it was.
collection.
Yeah, I think I've called him either or, but yeah, it's Selden.
Oh, what are you wearing? I'm wearing a Selden. The Selden collection.
Yes, there you go.
$2.99 at Belk.
I think he would love to be compared to him though.
Oh, I would.
He'd be
Yeah.
like, yes.
Oh, I dress like a slob. So if someone compares me to my dude Ben Stein, I'm all about it.
Oh, I'm hiding from court TV because I do not want to be on camera and I don't want them to.
I've seen your head poke out.
Yeah, I found the sweet spot to where I'm not on camera most times. I'll say really pan.
The camera angle you was on was it Natalie and then your head?
Yeah, she's over. If you look at it, it'll be straight on. She's in the front and then I'm over.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Her to the right. Yeah. Okay, so 2024, finally, we're here. 5 years after Michael's death, she pleads not guilty in January 2024. And then in May 13 of 2024, there's a pre-trial hearing because the trial is supposed to happen in August. And her attorneys are saying, we don't have all the records. We don't have all the discovery from the prosecution. We've been missing it. Now, leading up to this, they've been saying every time they're in court, Matthew is saying, I don't have all the records. I don't have all the records. And Ben is saying, yes, you do. Yes, you do. So,
and the reason why that's so important is because it's illegal to not share everything you're going to present in court with the other side.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, if you present something and they're like, we've never seen that, I mean, it's grounds for a mistrial.
Yep.
Right. So,
which would have been bad.
Yeah, really bad.
Which they could have they didn't really pursue.
No. So I'll get to that in like 2 seconds. Okay. So this is May 13th. And then in July, let's see, she gets a new trial date. They're pushing it back once again, and it's going to be now October 28th. So they have gotten a continuance. It's pushed back to October 28th. And Kirkpatrick's like, at this point, I think when Natalie was arraigned, we kind of already knew that Kirkpatrick was going to retire. And he was like, we are not dragging this case out for another year. This will go to trial before the end of the year. End of discussion.
Because it was up at the end of December. So he's carrying on to finish this.
So his term ended at the end of 24. So the beginning of 24, he has a year left. He's not running for re-election. He says, he's essentially been on this case too for several years. He's read all the discovery, all the filings, everything. So he's like, I'm not messing around. You better have this done.
Yeah, some kind of
he very much gives off the vibes like if he were to say that he was disappointed in me, I think I would cry.
I would be very I would be
like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, like man. Yeah. That's
him on the left. That's the story I did about his retirement.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah. Of course I don't know all the judges, but I'm just going to say the best judge in West Virginia is currently in Raleigh County, and he's done after this case. So it's kind of his swan song.
They said he's done the most jury trials out of all the judges, almost out of all the judges in the state.
Yeah.
Is what I've heard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. And he brings donuts every day.
He is so sweet. People have tried to make a West Virginia is fat joke because he's doing this, but I'm like, calm down.
Yeah, shut up.
And also it's just he's trying to Monday will be 3 weeks now that they have been here, right? They have come every day. They've sat through trial. They can't talk about it. So to offer some kind of incentive to say, hey, I appreciate your service. I appreciate what you're doing. I want to make this experience as pleasant as I possibly can. I think there's something to say about that. And I honestly, if I had to guess, he's spending his own money to do this.
Oh, 100%. And it's nerve-wracking for the jury too, because there's a lot of pressure, public pressure, and they've showed him on camera.
Yeah. I mean, they might not. Oh, no, the jury hasn't been on camera.
Have they?
No.
Sure? Or did they say it? Didn't they say it somewhere?
It's absolutely, I don't know if illegal is the right word, but you cannot, the identity of the jury is one of the most protected things you can have during a trial. I mean, you cannot approach them. If you're ever around them and you know that they're a juror, you can't talk about the case. It's a very sacred thing because you don't want any jury tampering.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they are not on camera.
Okay. Well, I must have misheard that. It seems like I remember their names being read or something.
So that happened. That did happen the first day, and they freaked out because they were like, oh, we don't want that. But I don't know if they talked to the judge after, say, please don't say the names because we're live streaming. But no, those names should not be out there. Their faces are not out there. Obviously, we see them every day in the courtroom, but we're not allowed to take pictures of them. There's no video of them.
Yeah.
They are completely anonymous. That's the whole point.
Good. I mean, it's a hard decision. And whatever, if one of them listens to this eventually, do
hopefully
what you
not until the verdict.
Not until the verdict.
Please no.
Post verdict, you had to do whatever you had to do. So this is, a totally commendable job.
I will interject. Someone,
and if one of you want to come on the show after you listen to this, feel free to reach out. Creepalachia on Facebook.
There was a potential juror that commented on one of my posts.
Oh,
said I was not selected, but I sat through it, and I was like, oh, tell me more.
Yeah,
but I haven't seen.
Yep.
Okay. So, anyways, back to
clarify, no juror. We don't know these people.
No. Yeah. This was a juror that was dismissed. He was not selected, so he's well within his rights to follow the case however he wants.
And my favorite part, Judge Kirkpatrick, he said, now for the most important part of the day, I will be driving by Chick-fil-A tomorrow.
Yes, he's so sweet.
And I want to know if you would like chicken biscuits as well.
I wanted to be I would, what about, can we place an order? Is there a carpool situation?
Yeah. Diet lemonade, please.
Please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much.
some little hash browns.
Yep. Carry on.
So, okay. So 2024, now we're in the middle of the year. It's July and she's got a trial now set for October. And then August is when stuff starts happening with Ben. So at this point, he is there's a domestic violence petition out against him. Some of the accusations about workplace misconduct are, beginning to creep into the headlines
which is ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. But so now it's like, okay, well, Ben has this huge case in like 3 months. What is happening? Right? We don't know. So that's when, that starts to there's questions raised about that. So now we're in September and Ben has since gone on voluntary leave is how it was described. And the Raleigh County Commission has hired Tom Truman to be an assistant prosecuting attorney. So they've hired him, but they did say on the day that he was hired that he is going to take over in the Natalie Cochran case. So we are not going to have any interruption. This case is going to go to trial this year, and Tom Truman is going to be the one to do it with his 30 years of experience.
And he's kind of over a barrel because Kirkpatrick.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think he also understands that this is the expectation.
Oh, yeah. It's been 5 years.
Right. Right. So then, and he takes on Ashley Akerd, who has been at the prosecutor's office now for a couple of years. And now prior to this, Ben did not have a second. This was his case and his case alone. There was no second. That could have been like, oh, well, I've been on this case too. I'll help out whoever comes in. Nope. Ashley had been there for a couple years, I think. So she's probably aware and maybe has seen stuff, maybe assisted some way or another.
Yeah.
But she's not fully involved in this case.
Yeah.
Until September of 2024.
And my heart goes out to her. She kind of gets thrown to the wolves, but she does a good job with what she's given because they're thrown into a hornet's nest.
Well, I think people have this perception of attorneys on TV that they're this aggressive, they're witty, they always know what to say, they have a comeback for everything. And that's just not real life.
And not according to Matthew Victor. My God. And Tom Truman has 30 years experience. So this dude has a lot of courtroom.
Yeah, he's done several. I was never there when he was a assistant prosecutor, but he's done several big trials.
Yeah.
From my understanding.
Yeah. So he's got the experience. It's just imagine you're a lawyer out there and you get thrown probably the biggest case arguably to ever hit Raleigh County and you have 2 months.
That is getting national attention.
Yeah. You're going to be on court TV. So I can't hate on him. I mean, we're going to talk about their shortcomings, but it's tough. I couldn't freaking do it. So anyway.
Okay. So Tom is hired on September 11th, 2024. And then September 20th is the first hearing where he appears in court for the Natalie Cochran trial. And that's when I didn't know until then that Ashley was on this case either, Ashley Akerd. So September 20th, there's a hearing. It's a 404B hearing. And Ben had set up this hearing he wanted to have her Ponzi scheme convictions in the trial to be able to use them as evidence. And he wanted to be able to use all her cancer medical records as part of the trial. That was how it was set up. That day, I overheard discussions saying like, what about the medical records for cancer? And Tom being like, we're not pursuing that, or we're not pursuing that, but we're not going to go to all the extra effort of wanting those records admitted into the trial or to be able to use them. So that was his strategy that was kind of revealed at that point.
Okay.
We'll see how that plays out. But that was their strategy. Again, you could argue though that like, if you throw too much at a jury, they will get confused and they won't be able to, accurately.
Man, that's one of the top 3 questions, though.
I don't know.
Prove she don't have cancer. She's a liar. Case closed.
But she already is a liar. You already know she's a liar.
You know she's a liar, but you don't know she's a murderer.
Exactly. But so again, that was something that I overheard at that time that they decided not to.
So it wasn't something like he found out she had cancer.
Oh. I don't know. I mean, that was never said one way or the other.
But
no,
if she did, they'd have brought the freaking records. Matthew Victor would have brought them in on a poster board.
So. Well, their investigator said, I have never found any evidence that she had cancer. So their investigator did say that. So, but again, they didn't bring up her actual medical records. And I think, okay. No, this was in another... So that we can at least...
Because you know what the Perry Mason moment that I saw Truman do was the text message with Treadway. That we need more of those Perry Mason moments.
Get shit from me.
Yeah. Or it was like...
That was so good.
He's like, isn't it true you wrote... They won't get shit from me.
That was so... He's like, well, let me show you. That was so good.
Let me show you.
Yeah. Again.
And he's like, oh, well, if that's what it said, that's what it said.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, this is good.
Again, a serious trial, but there are little moments that you just cannot help but kind of like laugh to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
I didn't know it would be this crazy.
Yeah. So just a little tidbit, since we are talking about Natalie's cancer a bit. It was reported, let's see, in 2019. So when she went and did her story with Jessica Farish at the Register Herald, she said that she had a myriad of health problems that she was, working through, that she had chronic illness. She had heart surgery. A doctor at the Charleston Area Medical Center diagnosed her with lymphatic leukemia, which is a blood and bone marrow cancer. She said that CAMC had referred her to the Cleveland Clinic, but it didn't appear her insurance the Cleveland Clinic was not going to accept her insurance. She then had to go to Duke University Hospital in Durham, North Carolina for treatment. At Duke, she said doctors told her she did not have lymphatic leukemia, but the Duke physicians diagnosed her with myelofibrosis.
Myelofibrosis?
Yep.
That doesn't sound good. Hey, I got screenshots coming up. Stick around, people. But you don't know about this yet.
Okay, so again, but it's still cancer. So it's a rare form of bone marrow cancer that has a slow progressive rate by.
What's it called?
I'm gonna spell it: MYELOFIBROSIS. And I will say, if my husband listens to this, he thinks it's hilarious how I try to.
All right, we got
spell out.
Myelofibrosis is a rare chronic blood cancer that causes scarring in the bone marrow. So that's a real thing.
Yeah.
But I just found it in half a second.
Mm-hmm. And so, so it's supposed to result in patients feeling weak due to severe anemia. Again, Jessica Farish, that was her report.
Let's see, typical prognosis. I'm just curious.
That was something that, like, if she has cancer, why is she, like, or did she...
Why is she still here? No, I mean, that sounds really shitty.
But again, I've never seen her pictures of her bald.
Yeah. Depends on the severity of the disease. Okay.
Well, we'll never.
Median survival rate is around 6 years. Some people live much longer. So it sounds like a really serious disease. Mm-hmm. And for the record, screw cancer. I hope it burns in hell. Anyone who suffers with that, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. I had to clarify that.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that's her cancer diagnosis, allegedly. We don't know. But then, so where were we? September 20th, 2024.
I have something for this.
Okay.
So I have a screenshot here, and I'm not showing the screen because I'm protecting our sources. Look
at you learning and stuff. Look at you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm halfway a journalist by now. So there was a screenshot shared of Daphne Jessup, the founder of Sewing for Souls, someone said her youngest daughter was diagnosed with heart problems and had a surgery, but it was botched. It was found out that she also had leukemia. Shortly after learning about her dire situation, Natalie's 38-year-old husband passed away unexpectedly. This past February, Natalie is now on chemo, but her blood is too low for bone marrow biopsy. The outcome is not hopeful, and she needs a miracle as she faces not only the recent loss of her husband, she is also looking at the possibility of leaving her 2 teenagers behind. On top of that, someone tried to break in her house today. Your prayers are very much appreciated for this precious lady. Click on the link below for Daphne's Facebook page.
And Daphne is Natalie's mother.
Daphne is Natalie's mother. So, she's sharing this story wide, and the family is obviously, you hear your daughter suffering from this, you're going to call out the prayer rangers to take care of business. This take this for what it's worth.
Right.
But this was spreading.
This would have been 2019.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that would have been 2019.
Yeah.
But yeah, so carry on.
All right. So we're September 20th. There is a hearing, and they decide that Natalie's convictions and the Ponzi scheme can be used in the trial. We also get to prove their case. Timothy Bledsoe, one of the investigators who was a state trooper, he testifies to that, and we get a little taste of what we're going to hear from that. So,
did he seem nervous, or is it just his personality? I don't know. I think he was up there so long, it seemed like he really detested the defense, which I'm sure a lot of people do.
Well, he's also when you are an expert, you're given certain leeways. So because he is an expert witness, he's a law enforcement officer, or he was, and he's a crucial part of the case. He has sat through the entire trial, right? So Bledsoe, as well as Heinzman, have sat through the entire trial, right? They're allowed to be there. It's part of the process. Now, every other witness who is being subpoenaed, who is not an expert, is not allowed to be there.
Right.
So, so I don't know if it's because he's maybe seen how things played out.
It may be his personality. Like, a lot of people are introverted, and he did a really good job. I just was curious of his personality. I don't know if you've ever interviewed him or anything.
He was retired by the time I started at the Register Herald. So this was the first time that I've ever. Which is important to know.
He's retired now, and I think he does some classes for the state
they said
police.
He comes in and does classes for this. So he's still affiliated with the state police, but he's not a active state trooper.
Right.
From my understanding.
Yeah, and he had the crucial evidence of the text messages between her and Jennifer.
Well, no, so they both did. Both investigators saw those text messages, and both investigators said it was the text messages that convinced them of Michael's innocence and Natalie's guilt.
Right. And the text messages were that of her asking for insulin for her cancer treatment.
So,
or is that different? Are there two sets of text messages?
They're saying, which they've said that it was the text messages between Natalie and Michael that convinced them of Michael's innocence and Natalie's guilt. Those text messages, I think we've seen one or two, right? Because there was that moment that I did quote in one of my articles where Michael's like, show me the text messages, right?
Yep.
And they're like, well, I don't have and again,
there's a lot of that.
Matthew could have, because a witness can't just bring stuff with them. They have to be presented with the evidence. And Matthew could have said, well, here's your report. Show me the text messages. Obviously, without the report, he can't show them, but the prosecution could have. I don't know why they haven't.
They didn't show him?
No. I mean, again, they've said there's hundreds. He said there's hundreds of text messages, hundreds. And I've only seen maybe one or two. I mean, I've seen many from Natalie. I've seen like dozens and dozens of text messages from Natalie to her friends, from Natalie to investors, but Natalie to Michael, I have not seen those.
Okay.
Or they have not been presented and shown in court.
Did they show the text messages with Jennifer?
Yeah. Those I have, and those I have.
Okay, that's the ones I was mainly.
I have so many with.
But there's a lot of that, and there's some stuff that's like,
and it's there.
The texts are too wide, and you can't even read them.
Yeah, and
the projector's too thin.
I've actually, because when you go back and look at court TV, you cannot tell. So if you again, I'm not on camera, but I'm moving, all like trying to get the picture, and so I've gotten decently good pictures of the messages that I've shared some of them on Facebook. Some of the timestamps are really hard to tell, but I've found that actually taking pictures of the screen, I can actually read them. Yeah.
Most of the people watching are going to be like, what the hell?
I know. And sometimes they show it so because it's really interesting. So I sit right behind the court TV like camera operator.
Mhm.
And so I watch him move the cameras around and things like that. And typically he'll have like the camera on the witness. And then when they have something on the screen, he'll have to pan the camera and then zoom in on the screen, focus, and then he'll pull up that camera. Right? So it takes about 10, 15 seconds.
Sure.
And some of these messages are only shown for 10 seconds. So he doesn't even catch all of them. There have been a couple that I've caught that court TV hasn't.
Are they providing the jury these papers of looking at this
No,
stuff?
I mean, they're seeing it as we are, right?
But they'll give them all the documents when they deliberate.
Again, they can request anything that is admitted into evidence, right? So all of these reports that we have not seen that they have discussed are in evidence and they can request and review at their leisure.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Cause I couldn't, I mean, I was like,
they can review when they go to the
and like, what were they sending these text messages on? MS-DOS?
I know. Oh my gosh. Some of the ones that Tom has presented, I'm like, in what world did you even like, are you, it's like, have you ever had someone that's texted your email and it shows up very, very weird? That's what it seems like it was. I'm like, this is the weirdest. I'm like, and
I'm
also
used to
like
the screenshot, like landscape mode or portrait mode, you can see it.
Well, there's no screenshots, right? They're all pictures of the I'm like, you can't.
Now I'm wondering, did they have to pull it from the phone company?
No. So there's like thumbs in some of the captures.
Oh,
so
okay.
Because isn't it like on iPhones, if you want the time, you have to like pull it to the side. So like this is what I'm guessing. It's someone pulling the screen to the side so you can see the times, and then they're taking a picture of. Yeah, I guess screenshots were not invented in 2021. I don't know.
Okay.
That's a different. Okay. So we're almost done. We're almost at the end of my first timeline. That's
no. Hey, listen, take your time. I don't care if this takes 5 hours. Like, this is going to be the informative source.
Yeah.
Through the BS.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But also not fun. It's not fun.
I mean, I think that because of the way that the trial has gone, it's not like, I mean, for me, I love a good timeline. I love A, B, C, D. This is how it went down, everything. But that's just not how trials work. You get this witness and they tell you their story. You need another witness and they overlap sometimes. But it's like, it's all kind of mixed up. So it's really hard to keep track of when things are happening.
And then you got objection. Objection.
Right.
Objection. This is blasphemous. What are we doing?
Yeah. Objection. That might be harmful. So don't say that.
Objection. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That witness is insane.
There was my favorite one where I think it was Stanley objected to the vial. He's like, it was the FBI guy who tested the substances of the vials, and he said like, oh well, the vial is whatever that long word is. It was like the clamip something, I don't know. And he was like, objection. I object to the way that he said that what it was. And Tom was like, really? Like that? The judge was like, I think we'll get to that, but like, what? Like, because I thought it was so funny that Tom was like, really? Like, that's what you're going with as your objection?
Yeah, and my extent of law school is the movie A Civil Action. Okay. So
I haven't seen that.
Oh, what's the guy's name? Oh, you'd know him if you saw him. Real old guy now. Richard. He was in The Godfather. Oh, I can't think of his name. I'm going to have to look it up.
I'm not a good like pop culture
person. So the one thing I remember from that movie is he's teaching a class.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show the screen here while I'm looking this up. But he's teaching a class.
Dare we say, is that Matthew Victor 20 years ago?
Oh, well, I mean, this is like the country, the American version of Matthew Victor, probably Robert Duvall. That's his name. So he's he's teaching the class, and he's like, rule number 1 about, being a defense attorney. No matter what, always object. And and it shows him asleep in court, and he wakes up and he's like, objection, and then just comes up with some way. And I always remember that. And I've never seen that happen anywhere like it has here. Now, OJ's trial was, those are blood-sucking hounds in that trial, obviously. But yeah, apparently it's a thing. So yeah, that's the extent of my law school.
I gotcha.
But
okay,
carry on.
All right. So that was September 20th. We get the little tidbit from Timothy Bledsoe, the investigator, and they say, yep, you can use her convictions in the trial. So that's September. And then October 8th, I write a story that says, like, the trial is in jeopardy because never mind. So October 8th, 2024, murder trial in jeopardy. It says more than 40,000 files related to the murder case against former Daniels pharmacist Natalie Cochran, which has been ongoing for roughly 3 years, were not provided to Cochran's defense attorneys prior to Tuesday. So 40,000 files dating back to 2021 that the prosecution had were not given to the defense.
It's a lot of files, Josie.
Huge, right?
That's grounds for mistrial. I mean, it's been 5 years.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, now the way they explain it is that something when they transferred didn't transfer over and it was human error and yada, yada, yada. Personally, I'm like, okay, but Matthew has been saying for 5 years now, we don't have everything. Ben has been saying, I remember there was one time where he's like, just because you want something doesn't mean I have to give it to you. Like, you want the whole kitchen sink and that's not my job. Right. And so, he's very crafty in how he's saying, you have everything. I'm not doing your work for you. I'm providing what I have. If you want something more, you can go get it.
Right.
And so.
And I could hang up the phone easily on this dude in Ben's defense, but you can't do that,
But again, so at this point, though, Ben's on it. I call Ben about this and he's saying, it was a mistake. It was a mistake.
Sure. It was
accidental. Right. But again,
it's a lot of files.
In 5 years, you didn't figure this out. In 5 years, it took a new prosecutor. I have a lot of feelings about that, but
that's a lot of files.
So that was October 8th, and at that point, you hear 40. I thought it was. I had to go and ask them because Tom says this in court. We found 40,000 files they didn't have, and I'm like, no, he probably meant like 400, 4,000, not 40,000, right? And so I asked them, did you say 40,000? Uh-huh.
How's that not the whole case?
There was the amount of documents was terabytes. And like,
ooh.
I don't know how much
that's huge.
That's, yeah. But I think they described it in like pounds. Like it was like just pounds and pounds of evidence. Like,
I mean, one document's like 630 gigabyte or kilobytes or whatever. So you think terabytes,
like full hard drives
that's
of
crazy.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And so then you have the defense saying like, well, how can we possibly, this is October 2024. They're supposed to go to trial at the end of October. They're like, you can expect us, even if, now they did say there's no way to know if some, most, all, however, were duplicated. So maybe we had these files already, but they were duplicated elsewhere. There's no way to know. Right. However, they were missing. We should have had them. The files that we should have had, we didn't. And so they're like, we can't go to trial. How are we going to get through all of these documents in 3 weeks?
Yep.
So,
I mean, yeah.
Right. And so at this point too, we're at October and Kirkpatrick is retiring December 31st, 2024. And we're like, well, how? Right. So at this point, that's when Kirkpatrick goes to the West Virginia Supreme Court and says, hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah, y'all want some biscuits?
Yeah. So he's like, no judge wants this case, right? We have two fairly new judges because we had two judges retire, Kirkpatrick being one of them, Burnside being another. So Burnside was already replaced middle of 2024. So we have a brand new judge. And then Kirkpatrick's replacement was elected and he started beginning of 2025. So that's two of the four circuit judges are new. You can't give them a trial like this.
Oh, and they don't want it because there's volatility.
Oh yeah. And I mean, there's two existing judges who've had, I think maybe a decade or so of experience. But again, it's a lot to go through. There's 5 years of documents that have been filed in this case. Like, so they all want Kirkpatrick to stay on, and Kirkpatrick petitions the Supreme Court. He asks for what's called senior judge status. so that he can
Is that
still.
like a senior discount?
I mean, yeah, you just get a trial.
Okay, perfect.
So it just basically says that like you continue to have the rights and authority of a judge,
Gotcha.
right? That we're granting to you. And then so he applies for that, and then he says, okay, as a senior status judge, I want to preside over this case that I've been presiding over.
Yeah.
So that takes like a month or two to actually go through. I don't think they meet. The Supreme Court only meets like a couple times a year. So they meet in November and decide that, yep, you can have it and you can have the trial.
I wonder if on his last day, if he's going to tear up driving home, or if he's going to be like, thank God.
Well, he packed
I'm
up.
so sick of being so nice.
Okay, so this is another layer. So he packed up his office middle of December, right? Because he's leaving. There's a new judge now that's in his place. On the day that he is packing up his office, there's a person who stays overnight in the courthouse, and Kirkpatrick is there. I think it's like a Saturday. He's there like 7, 8 a.m. to pack up his office. There's a person who has stayed overnight in the courthouse and is like vandalizing bathrooms, just like going all over. Yes, he has keys that he took from the janitor. And when it's found out that there's someone in the courthouse, well, SWAT gets called, right? So there's Kirkpatrick in his office. There's this random person running around the courthouse, and they have to sweep because this is a courthouse. There's judges here. You know, if someone's in the courthouse and they're not supposed to be, you automatically go to, okay, well, do they have treasonistic intentions? Are they planning a bomb? So they have to sweep everything. So you have SWAT. They're all, geared out, guns. They're scanning the courthouse, and they go into the judge's office. And I swear they probably nearly scared the shit out of him. But it's, it's, ooh, and he's like, can you just imagine? Like, you're like, what are you doing? Because nobody, the courthouse is closed.
Yeah.
Nobody knows Kirkpatrick is there. He can't, he's obviously allowed to be there, but they're sweeping the courthouse. They find the judge, and he's like,
yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
And he's not young.
He probably offered him coffee. Like, you fellas want some coffee?
Can you imagine, though, if that was why we didn't have Kirkpatrick in this case? Is because of me.
Oh,
okay.
Man.
So anyways, that's a little layer tidbit.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
I mean, this is near stranger than fiction.
Gosh,
close.
Okay. So we're finally almost at the end. So that was October. They're missing 40,000 files. The case is going to have to be pushed back. So then the end of October, Ben officially resigns from being the prosecutor. And then, so previously, Tom was the assistant prosecutor. You cannot appoint a new prosecutor unless the current one vacates their office. So Ben resigns, and Tom is appointed prosecuting attorney, and he'll be there for 2 years.
Yep.
Okay. So that is the end of October. And then we finally have another hearing where they set a new trial date for January 13th. And the judge is like, that's final. It will be January 13th. We will start January 13th. Like, no ifs, ands, buts, or whatever.
Yep.
So that's October. And at that point, we do find out that he's going to continue to be the judge on the case. Everything's going to be good.
Yay.
So, yeah. So that's the end of October. And then right before the trial starts, there's a hearing on January 10th. I think I was, here, January 7th or 8th talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
So January 10th, there's a hearing, and they want the interviews that Natalie did with police right before she was indicted to be thrown out. And they actually do get thrown out because during those interviews, they're in 2021, Natalie asks for her attorney multiple times. They're like, oh, well, we don't have our phones. We don't have this. We don't have that. Again, now they did say that nothing of note happened during this interview. But so she's asking for her attorney, Robert Dunlap, who we found out wasn't even her attorney then. But the fact that the judge ruled that she's asking for her attorney more than once, I think it's 2 or 3 times because he read the transcript. You pushed her off. You shouldn't have. So you can't use you can't use the transcript or the audio from that interview.
I can agree with that. That's horrible. But I can agree with that.
She's in federal prison at this point, right?
Yep.
So their excuse for why they didn't get an attorney is, oh, well, we had to give our phones away at the front, right? Because we're in.
There's no
prison.
excuse. You stop talking.
Yeah, it should have been, but
until they get there. Yeah,
I think they were like, oh, well, we'll call him after and let him know what happened. Is that okay?
No, that's not okay.
Yeah. So
I mean, I'm with the defense there.
Mm-hmm. So they get those thrown out. Also, at this point, the defense is like, oh, we also want the insulin vial thrown out. They're like,
of course
this
they
has
do.
nothing to do with the trial. They have tried multiple times to get it thrown out.
Oh my God, this freaking bottle of insulin.
So anyway, they have that, and the judge is like, no, that's going to stay.
Yeah.
So
way to go, judge.
I know. He was like, no, they've proven they have enough evidence to at least say it's relevant.
Sure. That's why we're here.
Right. So the insulin bottle is going to be admitted into the trial, which obviously it has been. And then there was an interesting quote from Tom that I noted. And he said, can the state say this is the insulin that was used to kill Michael? I don't think we can make that leap. We don't know. But the insulin was there. There was no reason for it to be there, and it was seized properly. It should be a matter of weight that the jury gives it, not admissibility. So I think that I've remembered that this whole time is the fact that, like, can you say Natalie used this vial of insulin to allegedly kill Michael?
Yep.
No. But why was it there? Right? No one in that household was diabetic. No one needed insulin. There's no prescription that's been produced for it. You know, there's that whole thing with Jennifer's kid, which at this point was not brought up. But again, it was saying the fact that it's there is suspicious.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was she gave that vial to Donna Bolt.
No, she gave the steroids to Donna.
Oh, she gave the steroid. Okay. Mm-hmm. I thought she gave the Humalog.
No, because the Humalog was found in her home. The steroids were found in Donna's home.
Got it.
Yeah, that came out clear.
Okay.
All right, so that is the end of my timeline, because then I have in big bold words, January 13th, 2025, the trial starts.
Awesome. I think I just had an epiphany. I got to take a bathroom break.
Oh my gosh.
So this is going to be 2 episodes. We're going to do them one right after another.
Sounds good.
But everyone out there, that is the complete timeline breakdown. Thank you so much, Jozy. We're getting ready to record right after this. We're going to talk trial days. We're going to talk all the details with them. And everyone out there, before you leave, be sure to like this video, subscribe to Creepalachia. Be sure to follow the podcast. Leave a review of the podcast too on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That'll really help the show get found. And we are on TikTok as well. And if you have a creepy story to tell, be sure to email me at creepalachia@gmail.com. We want to have you on. If you're an Appalachian with a good story, you know, we're going to have it. And, you know, I'm excited to announce Jozy is our official true crime reporter from here on out. I already talked her into it. We're going to be talking Appalachian true crime. So be sure to follow the channel and stay updated. But until then, long live Appalachia.